The Victorian era was full of many heartbreaking and atrocious crimes, as with any era, but one woman stood out with her despicable actions that caused the deaths of multiple infants who were entrusted to her care. She earned the dubb Ogress of Reading through her horrific actions. Amelia Dyer was found guilty in less than 5 minutes by a jury for the murder of a child, but actually she is believed to have killed between 200 to 400 infants who found their way into her care. Now Dyer was a nurse and a midwife, and by 1860 she was also a baby farmer. You see, in 1834, a law was passed that meant men who fathered a child out of wedlock were not required financially to support the child. This put the mothers in a very difficult situation. Raising a child is expensive, and these mothers simply could not afford to care for the child, so there were no options other than a baby farmer. So women like Amelia Dyer, for a fee, would adopt the children and promise to love and care for them. But this was all a ruse, and more often than not, the children were mistreated, beaten, and very often killed. Dyer assured the mothers that the children would be in the best of hands, but she had other plans. During the late 1890s, and even into the first few years of the 1900s, an opium-laced syrup was popular to help mothers with labour and pregnancy pains. But Dyer fed the children this mother's friend in a bid to silence them as they suffered. Dyer would let the children die through starvation, and she would feed them this syrup to quiet them. But this wasn't a very fast or effective system, so she started to resort to other ways to murder the infants to allow her to earn more money. Amelia was arrested as the authorities were made aware of her actions by a suspicious doctor. Sadly, though, Dyer was only sentenced to 6 months of labour and a charge of neglect, a mistake that would cost the lives of hundreds of children when she was released. Initially, it seemed that Amelia had learnt her lesson. Well, it appeared that way to the authorities. However, that was only because she no longer involved the doctors and physicians. Amelia, once the children died, began to dispose of their bodies herself, thus eliminating any added risk, and she also took up new names and aliases and relocated frequently. These were all risk reduction actions to minimise getting caught. However, Amelia's crimes soon caught up to her. On March 30th, 1896, a package was found in the Thames by a bargeman, and a horrific discovery was made. A baby girl, later identified as Helena Fry, was found surrounded by wrapping paper. On said paper was the faintly written name and address, and this is what led the detectives right to Amelia Dyer's home. A female officer was sent as a decoy to inquire about her services, and when Amelia expected her, she was actually greeted by the detectives who arrested her. When the officers entered the house, the smell of human remains was unbearable, but no bodies were found. Letters dated around the time indicated that the house should have been bursting with life and full of babies. But sadly, this was far from the case. No other babies were found on the premises. She was arrested and charged with murder, and her son-in-law, Arthur Palmer, was charged as an accessory, but he was later released. The Thames was searched and 6 more bodies were found. But after interviews with many mothers, witnesses, and the evidence found, it indicated that the 7 babies found were just the surface of her crimes and the atrocities that she committed. Each baby found had white tape around their necks, and Amelia is later recorded as saying about the tape, "That was how you could tell it was one of mine." Amelia was tried in the March of 1896 at the Old Bailey, and she used insanity as her defence, but it took the jury less than 5 minutes to find her guilty of the murder of Helena Fry. Amelia Dyer pleaded guilty to just 1 murder, but the timelines predict that she was responsible for as many as 400 deaths of innocent children. Then on the 10th of June 1896, just before 9 a.m, Amelia Dyer was hanged until dead. She has gone down in English history as perhaps the most prolific serial killer, and she is even thought to have been one and the same as Jack the Ripper. The theory is that the victims of the Ripper were actually botched abortions committed by Dyer, but there is little to no evidence to support this. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.